the Krimml Falls. The falls are divided into 3 large cascades, each more than 100 meters in height. With a total fall of 380 meters, the Krimml are among the leading waterfalls in Europe.
Before it reaches the German border, the Rhine River also offers us an incredible show of power. In Neuhausen, Switzerland, the river falls a height of 23 meters across its full width. Despite its meager height, which is almost laughable in relation to that of other waterfalls, particularly those we've just seen, the Neuhausen Falls are a thrilling experience because of their width. At the falls, the Rhine is over 150 meters wide, making Neuhausen the largest waterfall in Europe. The river flows on relentlessly, pouring an incredible 600 cubic meters per second over the falls.
In Iceland, an earth tremor created a gaping hole in the Earth's crust and gave birth to one of the world's most majestic waterfalls, the Gullfoss, or Golden Falls, whose incredible plumes of spray are almost constantly embellished by rainbows. The Gullfoss falls in a series of steps from a height of 33 meters and seems to disappear between the sheer walls of a narrow gully.
Cascades abound in Norway and are more numerous than anywhere else in the world. Plunging down the slopes of the Scandinavian mountains, the country's many rivers and streams flow into magnificent fjords. Fjords are large glacial valleys that cut through the Norwegian landscape to the sea. The largest fjord in Europe is the Sognefjord Fjord. It measures 210 kilometers in length, including Lustra Fjord, one of its arms that reaches into the heart of the mountains.
The Sognefjord is a gigantic access route into the center of the country and was the scene of naval battles almost 1,000 years ago. Later, at the end of the 19th century, King Edward VII of England fell under the charm of the fjord and made it a fashionable holiday spot. Today, the fjord is the point of departure for a fabulous journey into one of Norway's most pleasant regions, the Sogn og Fjordane.
These slopes are 8 kilometers apart, but one is most stunned by the high walls that rise above the waters of the Sognefjord. Some of them are 1,600 meters in height. And this is only part of the fjord's incredible size. Its sheer walls drop another 900 meters below sea level. With a record depth of 1,308 meters, this fjord is the deepest in Europe. And considering the full height of its walls, both above and below sea level, this gigantic fjord is larger than the world's largest canyons, including the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River, which is only 1,600 meters deep.
Like fjords, rivers have always been used for transportation. Given its length, greater than that of any other river in Europe, the Danube has long made it possible to move large herds of livestock between seasonal pastures. The Danube begins in Germany, then crosses Austria for 356 kilometers. A crossroads between the East and the West, three great civilizations, Latin, Germanic, and Slavic, thrived on its Austrian shores.
The Danube is Europe's only navigable east-west river. The Roman legions, then the Huns, the Celts, the Franks, and later Napoleon's armies crossed the Danube Valley. The river cuts through Vienna, one of the major landmarks of Europe's musical heritage. Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven were inspired by the Danube's rippling currents. Johann Strauss immortalized the river in one of his most renowned waltzes, the Blue Danube.
After Vienna, the Danube flows onto the plains and crosses the Slovakian border, then cuts across the Hungarian plain from north to south. Then it heads east and forms the border between Bulgaria and Romania, all the way to the Ukraine. Finally, as if weary from its 2,850-kilometer-long journey, the Danube stretches out across a vast delta.
At this point, the river is divided into several large arms and flows at a rate of more than 6,000 cubic meters per second. This delta, the largest in Europe, covers 5,640 square kilometers of constantly changing water and land, an exceptional habitat for a great variety of wildlife species. With 250 species of birds, this delta has the richest ornithological resources of any in the world. Finally, the Danube flows from several dozen mouths along 80 kilometers of coastline into the Black Sea between Europe and Asia.
Lake Balaton in Hungary resembles an inland sea. With a surface area of 591 square kilometers, it is the largest lake in Central and Western Europe. Long and narrow, the lake stretches out for almost 100 kilometers. Its regular shape is broken only by the Tihany Peninsula, whose hilltops cut the lake almost in two. The peninsula offers spectacular views of the lake and is rated among Hungary's most renowned holiday spots. Lake Balaton is very popular. The vast lake is perfect for swimming and yachting, and it attracts crowds of delighted tourists.
Mazury, in Poland, is another region that attracts great numbers of tourists. But the countryside is protected from holiday overcrowding because there's not just one lake, there are thousands. At least, that's what the Mazury region is called, the land of 1,000 lakes. Actually, there are more than that. Even counting only the lakes larger than 1 hectare, the Mazury boasts over 2,000. A complex system of canals and streams links the lakes. All told, 1/5 of the region's surface area is covered with water. And with their pleasant shores, many bays, peninsulas, and islands, the lakes of Mazury are an ideal setting for recreational and leisure activities.
Just to the south lies the forest of Białowieża, covering 130,000 hectares, some 58,000 of them in Poland. Białowieża is one of the largest forests in Europe. To fully preserve the forest's wild character, part of it was made a national park in 1921. Thanks to this conservation effort that has saved the trees, some of them 400 years old, one can encounter another surprising giant here, the bison. Hunted until the turn of the century, bison now enjoy the forest's peace and quiet, and their numbers are increasing. Today, bison graze safely in the lush pastured clearings.
The plant life at Elche in Spain is unlike that found anywhere else in Europe. The region of Valencia, lying on the Mediterranean coast, is in fact one of the driest places on the European continent. And Seville, Europe's hottest city, is not far away. The palm trees of Elche thrive in this extraordinary climate and are the largest in Europe. This carefully tended spot is known as the Priest's Garden. It's dedicated to cultivating a variety of plant species that one would hardly expect to find in these latitudes.
Recent studies have revealed that Iceland was covered with massive vegetation 1,100 years ago. But today, under the influence of polar air masses, the island's surface is barren and sprinkled with unexpected phenomena like those here in the region of Geysir. On Iceland, one of the most volcanic spots on Earth, one can experience the rare spectacle of hot water geysers. The largest geyser is called Strokkur. Inside, a mass of water is heated, rises, and spews out over 20 meters into the air.
Another island, Sicily, dominated by Mount Etna, is also known for its volcanic activity. But at first glance, Etna looks like nothing more than peaceful, rolling countryside. There are many homes and farms on its slopes. The soil here, fertilized by volcanic ash, attracts farmers, and the grapes produced here make an excellent wine.
When one looks further, however, Etna resembles the harshest mountain peaks. The peak is covered with snow 7 months of the year. Mount Etna is indeed surprising, a cone of 650 cubic meters rising to an altitude of 3,350 meters and only 20 kilometers from the sea. But Mount Etna is first and foremost a volcano, the largest volcano in Europe, with one of the most impressive records. 135 eruptions have been counted since ancient times. When Mount Etna awakens, nothing can stop it. Molten lava, at a temperature of almost 1,000 degrees centigrade, inexorably flows down the mountainside.
Enceladus, the mythological giant beaten by Athena, is said to be imprisoned within the volcano. Every time he moves, the volcano rumbles and the ground of Sicily quakes.
Through volcanic explosions, a large number of islands have been created, destroyed, and transformed in the Aegean Sea. Today, with some 2,000 islands, Greece has more coastline than any other country in Europe, over 15,000 kilometers.
These Mediterranean islands hardly have any tides. In the English Channel between France and England, however, tides can reach spectacular levels sometimes. Normandy in France has Europe's highest tides. At Granville, the tidal differential can reach 14.6 meters. A little further to the south, the Atlantic rolls onto the beach in white breakers. Between the sea and the pine forests bordering the coastline, nature's brushstrokes have painted an odd third color onto this landscape.
The gigantic yellow mass spilling out of the trees, the Pilat Dune, is colossal, 60 million cubic meters of sand. It rises to a height of 104 meters with variations from year to year. Currently, the dune is decreasing in height. It measures 2,700 meters in length and is 500 meters wide. On the seafront, the dune slopes gently up from the beach, pushed by the ocean breeze. On this side, where the successive stages in the dune's evolution can be seen, certain plants were able to take root. On the forest side, the bare dune rises at an angle of more than 30 degrees.
Across from the dune, A coastal pass leads to the Arcachon Basin. The sandbanks beyond are the reserve from which the winds lift the sand and drop it onto the dune, constantly replenishing it. The dune moves slowly inland, covering the trees as it goes. One by one, they disappear, till the dune will uncover them centuries later. To the south, just before the continental tip, one finds another dune, at Doñana. Plant life here is different, as is the size of the dune. The Doñana dune measures only 34 meters in length. But as for the rest, the dunes at Paila and Doñana are exactly alike, the same threat to the forest, the same ocean wind that carries the sand and pushes the dune forward. The dune at Doñana, however, is incredibly mobile. It moves 5 to 6 meters per year.
We're back at the Atlantic Ocean, which forms the entire western limit of the European continent, but we're much further to the north in Ireland. The combat here between the sea and yet another giant is incredibly violent. Standing before the sea are the cliffs of Moher. Frequent landslides prove that the ocean's relentless assaults are slowly weakening the cliff's rock foundations.